COVID-19 pandemic is taking a heavy toll on cultural events around the world. One by one, festivals and concerts have been cancelled and cinemas closed. Now, one of London's most iconic theatres is under threat. Home to opera, dance and classical drama, the Old Vic may be forced to close its doors permanently. Judith Prescott has more.
It's one of London's oldest and most prestigious theatres, but now the Old Vic is on the verge of financial collapse. Like many arts venues around the world, the building is shut, the majority of staff furloughed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Artistic director Matthew Watchers doesn't know if the Old Vic will survive.
We were a couple of weeks from the end of a very successful run of Beckett's Endgame, and I was at the end of rehearsals for the play which was supposed to follow, which was a play called 4,000 Miles with Eileen Atkins and Timothy Chalamet, and that was ready to go. And having to close all of that down and then close the building as well, that was a huge thing. And then the next big hurdle was how to calibrate and assess the financial situation of the institution.
The Old Vic is a non-profit organisation with no government funding, in common with other venues in the capital like Shakespeare's Globe, the Royal Academy and the Royal Albert Hall. Pre-COVID-19, it presented shows to over 300,000 people a year and in normal times relies on ticket sales, donations and sponsorship. It's currently running down its reserves. Contrast the Old Vic's difficult situation with funding for the arts elsewhere in Europe. Just last week, French President Emmanuel Macron threw a lifeline to the country's badly hit culture section. He announced funds to reimburse shows and cancel filming, as well as support for festivals and small businesses. This will be of little comfort to cash-strapped theatres, as experts predict. Alongside tourism, the arts will take the longest time to recover from the worldwide pandemic. Judith Prescott, Euronews.
Well, for more on this, we can talk now to Adam Penford. He's the artistic director of the Nottingham Playhouse. Well, we just heard about the financial difficulties being experienced now by London's Old Vic, and many people might be surprised by this. They're thinking a theatre in London experiencing financial difficulties. So I imagine perhaps things are worse for you in Nottingham.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky time for everybody, I think. So in terms of us, our earned income tends to be about 70 to 75% of our turnover each year. So actually, the minute that COVID kicked in and lockdown happened, ticket sales fell off a cliff, in effect. The government's furlough scheme has been helping, but the minute that finishes, if there's a gap between the end of furlough and us starting to generate ticket sales again, then we could be in really big financial difficulty.
Okay. Well, I've had many comments on my Instagram and Twitter feed, people saying, how can, given what London and Britain produces, actors, film, how can it be that the industry isn't getting any help from the government?
Yeah, I mean, the furlough scheme is fantastic, and the government have, they're trying to help every sector. It's a tricky time for everybody, but the arts and theatre specifically do need more help because until we can get back on our feet, until we can get the audiences in, we're not going to be able to become financially stable. So for example, Nottingham Playhouse, we have a very successful pantomime every Christmas. And that helps to subsidise other plays that we do, working with young writers or new plays. And they help, one subsidises the other. So if we're not back in a place by Christmas, and it looks like we're unlikely to be so, we are going to need more government support in order to shore us up until that time when audiences can return in the same numbers.
Yeah, well, if the government does have to come up with a new way of helping the arts industry, some people might say, well, there's the National Lottery. What type of form do you think that might take?
If they could look at extending furlough beyond perhaps what other sectors may need it, that would certainly help bridge the gap. We have a theatre tax relief at the moment that George Osborne set up, which really helps us. That's a mechanism that exists for government. If they were to extend that further and widen it slightly, that would be very helpful to our sector. For every pound of subsidy that goes into the creative industries, it's estimated that between £5 and £6 are given back into the economy. So it makes sense to invest in us. as a sector, because in the long term, we are generating money for the economy.
You mentioned there, yes, the financial power of the theatre and the arts, but in a wider sense, how would you describe, how important the role is, the arts and culture, to Great Britain?
Yeah, of course. The economic argument is there and has been made, but the point of art, or theatre specifically, is actually to work with our communities. We're going to be absolutely crucial in helping society rebuild itself once COVID starts to lift. So we've been working with our community during this period. We've moved a lot of our work with youth groups, for example, or seniors online and digitalised that. We've been helping to support local theatre makers as well. All that work's continued. So I think we can play a crucial role in helping to rebuild the communities, and everybody's going to need that. Theatre brings people together. It allows you to step into someone else's shoes. It teaches compassion, and sitting in a room with your peers and the rest of society is just such a positive thing you can do. It teaches humanity, and I think we're going to be needed after all this.
Adam Penford, you've passed your audition with me, Artistic Director at the Nottingham Playhouse. Thanks for joining us.